Hi, I have a quick announcement before we dive into today's episode. I've opened a few new spots for my 90-day program called the Inner Oasis, designed to help high-achieving women who are stuck in chronic stress and burnout to retrain their nervous system so that calm, sleep, and balance become their default, not a temporary break. I will be using a unique blend of sound healing, energy healing, and journaling. So if this is something you want support with, you can book a call at www.inneroasis.org or use the link in the description to get your personal 90-day recovery plan for free. Now, let's get into today's episode with my next guest. Hi, Mitch. How are you? Welcome to Learning Thriving.
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to talk to you because lately I've been talking a lot about nervous system regulation, and you're a coach about nervous system regulation. You help a lot of people. So I'm so happy that I have a professional. And so I read your story and you were living what looked like a dream life. And something happened behind the scene. Can you tell us about that? What happened?
Yeah, I'm gonna even back us up a little bit more. When I was 20 years old, I fell out of a second story window, had a traumatic brain
Oh,
injury,
yeah.
and I right after that started having panic attacks, anxiety, broke out in autoimmune all over my body, a skin rash, and not too much longer, I moved into a house that had black mold. I developed Lyme disease, which is a tick-borne illness. I had heavy metals. I was diabetic, and I went to functional medicine and started reversing some of these things. I left the. I was working in the corporate world at the time, and I decided that's kind of where you were talking about living my dream life. So I was working in the corporate world. I was making good money and enjoying life, and these symptoms they just kept piling up and getting worse and worse. I wasn't sleeping. I had insomnia. I so I go to a functional medicine doctor and we start working on these things. I reversed the Lyme, detox from the heavy metals and the mold, the moldy home that I was living in. And I fell in love with wellness. I left the corporate world, started coaching, and then I got hit by a dump truck. And so I had another TBI, post concussion syndrome for a year, and then I got long haul COVID 3 years in a row. Um, and eventually found the nervous system and do the work I did now. But what I thought that was the trauma, these different traumatic events, and there was also early developmental trauma and attachment wounds and things like that really drove these patterns. And I think that's the reason my body went through these traumatic experiences was to try to get me to pay attention, try to get me to pay attention to my body. And so that's what I do with my clients now is we retrain the brain to feel safe, we connect with the body, express the emotions, the sensations, and eventually the symptoms don't have to yell and scream at us to get our attention when we're paying attention.
So do you do this on top of somebody maybe already taking medication or already using regular medicine? Do you do that to accompany this person to help them with something they're already doing, or do you try maybe to replace it and to say it's actually deeper and we should need to work deeper, and maybe you won't need to take all those medication, you won't need to take anything
Well,
else later?
what I would say to that is I'm not a doctor, and so I really don't touch or talk too much about medication. Now, my opinion on that and the way that that showed up for me is certainly I used medication as long as I needed it. And what I tend to tell my clients is, obviously don't stop your medication doing this work. We learn about resourcing in this work and particularly using things that can help us settle. And I'm not going to criticize anybody for taking medication or having a glass of wine at the end of the night, smoking a joint, whatever that may be, these taboo things that we may say are good or bad. If it's helping, it's helping. And what happens with this work is we can really trust the nervous system. And when its time is up, when it's no longer needed, you'll know. Um, I don't encourage people to experiment or try that. Obviously, speak with your doctor. But what you asked, the work that I do is the deeper work. Where there's a lot of different doorways into the nervous system, and my clients tell me that when we're having a conversation, whether that's behavior, whether that's an emotion, whether that's a symptom that they're dealing with, a sensation in their body, a belief that they may have. So we're combining the brain with the body, and we're just meeting people where they're at and creating a dialogue, creating rapport, and the nervous system will tell us, where we can start.
So would that be what you call nervous system regulation? Because some people maybe they don't know what it means. So if you wanted to explain this in like very simple terms,
Yeah, sure.
what
Nervous system dysregulation to me, it just means that the nervous system is stuck. It's typically stuck in a survival response. We're either stuck in fight or flight, or we're stuck in more of a freeze or a shutdown response. And all healing starts with awareness and just understanding that that's where we're at. It doesn't mean that it's bad or wrong. It's just information. And typically, what we find is that people are not broken; that the nervous system is actually responding perfectly for the environments that it's been in. And so, our trauma, our early environments, our wounds, they tend to shape our body. And over time, if we can bring awareness to this, we can have education, we can start to move out of that stuckness and into a more what we would call regulated state.
I think some people are stuck in like survival mode and without realizing it. They don't know that actually every day they're waking up, but it might be, the day they're gonna burn out and crash. Is it because we have too much busy life, so we don't
Yeah,
realize it?
yeah. I think the body is trying to protect us the best way that it knows how. And
Yeah.
certainly our society contributes to this because it says these things are bad. We give it the label anxiety. We prescribe medication. We say, you got to fix this and you got to figure it out. And when we've been in a state of activation, high anxiety for a long period of time, our nervous system, and we've been trying to fix and figure out, our nervous system goes into more of a sensitized state where everything becomes a threat. We start to avoid life and the things that we love. Our world gets really small because of the hypervigilance, the constant scanning for stress. And everything in this work, it really starts with education and understanding our bodies aren't broken. They're just trying to protect us the best way that they know how. And we want to update that software program. That's where the brain retraining comes in, and eventually learn to come out of the head into the body and feel safe with the sensations that we're experiencing. But depending on where someone is, that can take some time to build that capacity to be with those intense sensations that really we've been avoiding for quite some time.
So you're talking about working with the brain. So do you work with the brain? Do you work also with the body, maybe like exercise or nutrition? Do you do things like that in your programs?
Yeah, I would say we work with both. We want to, I think a lot of programs miss the mark by saying it's a brain thing or it's a nervous system thing. And certainly nutrition plays a role. We want to, it requires a lot of energy to do this work. And if we're eating a bunch of processed food and crap, that's not going to support us. So we may everybody's it's so individual, and we may start with some nutrition. We may, but so much we start with education, with awareness, with tiny little bits of awareness, and slowly dipping our toe into what the body is holding. But with the mind, if the mind doesn't believe that it's safe to be with this sensation that feels so scary, then it's not going to let us touch that. And so we can try to feel it as much as we want, but if it's not safe, our body's not going to open that doorway. And so that may be where we talk first and we start to work with the beliefs. And what tends to happen is eventually we work with the belief and we notice how that feels in our body. And when we can connect that belief with what we're feeling in our body, that pathway in the brain is open and it's saying, come and get me. And we want to renegotiate um, that experience so that we can allow the energy that wanted to move through to pass through the body, and eventually we can heal and the symptoms calm down. But that takes time and it takes awareness and it takes little bits of work to eventually add up to this bigger piece that we would call a trauma release.
We have so I mean, we keep so many things in our body. We don't. There's so many things we don't release. You don't realize, and after years and years of abuse, you just break down, and this is when you need help, right?
Yeah.
So what shifted for you when you stopped trying to fix your body and
Oh
started
my
listening
gosh.
to it instead? So that much.
Well, I found myself in a very sensitized state, meaning I had had activation anxiety for such a long time that I basically went into shutdown. A lot of fatigue, couldn't get out of bed, and I had someone on my podcast that told me, "Hey, what keeps us in this state is trying to fix it and figure it out." And I had built a career around trying to make it go away, trying to find solutions. And I told my nervous system there's a threat that I can't get away from. And so, I mean, it's going to go into collapse when there's a tiger standing at the door and it's not going away. And so, one of the things I had to do was allow the symptoms to be there, allow the sensations to be there, and accept them and move through them, knowing that it's not forever. Trauma always feels like it is forever, and that's a clue that can let us know that we're in a trauma response, that we're in a younger age, a younger consciousness. Our child consciousness is what we call that. And so much shifted when I quit trying to fix myself, and that's particularly where we want to start when someone's in a sensitized state, and then we can go to the deeper work later on. But safety is first, and we got to teach the brain and the body that it's safe. We don't do that through force. We do that through creating new experiences that show us that we are safe. And in the beginning, that may mean building the capacity to know that I am safe by using our senses and looking around the room while we feel this intense sensation that says, my body is on fire.
Do you use like meditation or affirmation to raise on the brain of people?
Certainly, I'd say two things to that. Yes, we use meditation in a practice that's similar to meditation. It's more of like a somatic tracking or somatic awareness of what's going on in my body and learning to accept that. But also, I know that when I first got started, before I learned about this work, meditation was way too much for me. If I tried to close my eyes, I couldn't handle that. I wanted to stay busy. And so it really depends on the person. I would never say that meditation is wrong, but it may not be the right move for someone in the very beginning who has so much activation. We may want to learn to move with that intensity and do things like qigong and tai chi and maybe some yoga, maybe breath work, more active type of movements to help move with that energy. Because sitting still in the beginning was like sitting in the fire, for me.
I completely agree with you because I do Bikram yoga, and they call it it's meditating but being awake, meditating being awake, the eyes open. So it's also meditation, and you do that for 90 minutes. I'm telling you, you get out of there, you are a new person. You really meditated for an
Yeah,
hour and a half, and you move and you move energy. And I was talking to somebody else also. He was telling me, meditating doesn't mean you have to be seated and don't do nothing. You can also go outside, walk around for like 30 minutes, but with no podcast, not listening to music, nothing, just like no talking. For
yeah,
half an hour, that's meditation. So
yeah.
some
I
people
would I would
need to walk
say
around.
I
Yeah.
love that. I would say spending time in nature, that's a great
Yes.
meditation. And even,
Yes.
when I have clients, we'll create a recording for them and have because sitting might be too much, and so they'll learn to do this somatic of becoming aware of their body and their sensations while they're listening and walking, and that way, someone who's had a lot of anxiety, they can actually move that out, like you're saying, while they're walking, while they're in movement, instead of forcing themselves to sit still.
I want to go back to when you said you had Lyme disease and what was it?
Mold.
The moles. Yeah. How did you survive all of this? Because did that happen? Everything happened at the same time? What
Oh,
was
yeah.
going on?
Oh, yeah. I mean, luckily, I went to a functional medicine doctor, learned a lot about detox, learned a lot about, specializing the diet and got out of the moldy home when we found it. and did a lot of really good things for my body, cleaned up my diet. And but I would also say that I took that to an extreme, and I learned some unhealthy habits that come from that early conditioning that says, I got to push through, I got to work harder, I can't rest, and I got to be perfect. And so I took biohacking and detox to an extreme that ultimately pushed my body into more sensitivity. Again, not to say that those things are wrong, but it depends
Hmm.
on the intention that we're coming from. Are we looking to support and work with our body? Or in my case, are you looking to overwhelm the body with force and do the healing when the body's not ready? It really depends on the individual.
So how long is with your personal coach? How long would be you have different programs? How long would be a program with you if somebody wants to take you on as a coach?
So they can work with me for one session. I offer 30 and 60-minute sessions. When I was doing health coaching in the past, you'd work with me for a year. In this work, I'd love to work with you for 10 sessions, but I don't require any kind of minimum. I don't require I don't have a program. It's one-on-one work, and there is no sequential order of doing things. I'm just meeting people where they're at. There's a lot of education, there's a lot of awareness, and we're working with what the body brings to us that day. And I found meeting people in the moment, being here in the now, is what the nervous system craves. Because if somebody walks in and say we've been preparing to work with this really difficult situation and we've been building up to it, and that day they got in a car accident and they're feeling like crap, then we're not going to work with that. We're going to meet them in that moment that day. The nervous system really responds to that. And when I started doing that with my clients, as opposed to trying to hold them to a standard or to a course or to a program, the work just flourished because all our nervous systems really want is just to be met. They want to be seen, they want to be heard and validated, they want to be supported whatever they're working through now. And I'm not so concerned about the past as I am what's going on right here. All the freedom that we want is here in the moment, using our senses, connecting with the moment. And really when we're in like a remote situation, we're kind of working in this quantum field in the moment of now. And if I'm in the past trying to recreate something in the future, or trying to force an outcome, nervous system feels that and goes right into protection.
There are quite different, I would say, modality for women compared to men because we don't have the same stress. So I feel like sometimes, I don't know, men might be more stressed out because of their job or they have to take care of the family, or but really because of work most of the time because they really want to concentrate on work. Women is more because they have to take care of a lot of things at the same time. Yeah, it's you. I'm sure it's custom according to every person. But did you notice something maybe like different between men and women that you apply all the time?
That's a good question. I have some friends in my groups, like nervous system groups, mentorships that I've been in that are really into this topic and say that men and women are different, and they certainly are. It's funny in my experience. I've been in so many groups that it's just me and a bunch of women, and so I, I'm really used to.
Because men they don't like to ask for help. That's the
Yeah,
issue.
the guys aren't. Here's the thing, though. The women are typically the ones to go first and be called to this work. Men may be a little bit more hesitant. We're taught by society that our emotions aren't allowed unless we're angry or pissed off, and we're being a wuss if we are. And so that definitely creates a hesitation. But when I'm working with men, they do just as good with this work. Um, Women tend to be more open and vulnerable. When men get to that space, as long as we don't make it about trauma work, and they're encouraged and they're met and they're seen, they open up the same way. There may be more of a sympathetic physical approach to men, especially in the beginning, and the women may be more emotional and touch with that parasympathetic side of things, the softer side of healing. But again, it kind of goes both ways in different individuals. And I think the ability to just be open and meet the human that's in front of us and let go of the labels that that our nervous system is gonna show up in the way that we're looking for. It's gonna, and the practitioner is different too. So, if it's not a good fit with me, I'm lucky enough that I have a lot of really good contacts and I can pass them on. And certainly not everybody's for me, and I'm not for everybody, and that's okay. That's just really good awareness. And I would never want to keep somebody around that wasn't a good fit. And that's a part of this job, is just being aware, meeting the moment, and being willing to suggest other alternatives when this isn't a good fit.
Very honest to say that. That's good. And for someone who's feeling like stuck, exhausted, maybe out of answer, what would be the first things you would recommend they do to start healing, to begin the healing?
Um, if someone's stuck, usually they have tried everything. When you find me, you tried everything and nothing seems to work, and that's great. Um, and so we want to start learning about the nervous system, and how the nervous system is kind of the control panel of the entire body. All these different hormonal systems and digestion and circulation and sleep and all these things are dependent on the nervous system. And so just through education and awareness and learning how the nervous system functions, so much can happen there, because we normalize what we're dealing with. So much of us have dealt with these symptoms for a long time. We think they're going to last forever. We think that we're broken, and in learning that they don't last forever, that things can change, and that your
Yeah,
nervous system
that's true.
isn't broken. That can be a wonderful thing, and to learn that, hey, we don't have to respond to every symptom, and so much can happen when we let them be here, and let that response from the body fizzle out. Like, let it express itself, and the nervous system is always changing. So if we can build education and awareness, so much is possible.
Do you have a little tip maybe for like insomnia? Because I'm a sound healer. I do sound healing and Reiki also is sound healing. And a lot of people come to me because they can't sleep. They're very burnout. They can't sleep. They have a lot of insomnia. And after they do a sound bath with me, they sleep like a baby, the following week at least. They sleep very good. Do you have, because I'm sure people come to you because they can't sleep, they have a lot of insomnia. Is there something you recommend for that?
They may be, and how the body is actually protecting us, because it's staying hyper
Mm,
vigilant. It feels like there's a threat, and I'm someone who had insomnia for 20 years, and I've just started sleeping again here, this past year, and I was on medication for that long too. We had that
20
conversation
years.
earlier.
It's a long
Yeah,
time.
it was rough, and
Yeah.
I think I learned that, hey, I don't have to fix my sleep. I was the person that, when I realized I wasn't sleeping good, I took all the supplements, I did all the protocols, I tried to do everything perfect. Next thing you know, I got a 2 hour bedtime routine, and I'm dousing myself in lavender, and hell yeah, I'd be playing every sound that I could to make myself calm down, but it didn't work, and and
Yeah.
and that's a good place to be too, because ultimately I learned, hey, your body's going to sleep when it's ready. And the more that we can show it that it's okay, that it's not sleeping and not responding to that, then it'll sleep. And I heard someone one time talk about, a snow globe, and talked about waking up in the middle of the night and not being able to go back to sleep. And we can't control what woke us up. Something woke us up, right? And it's
Yeah.
something our body is doing. And if we try to fix that and be the glue holding everything together, do the sleeping for our body, then our body is just going to get dysregulated. And so my thing that I do is I try to, get up or move. That's where some some cognitive behavioral type stuff would help. And maybe you're switching rooms. If you've got all the sleep hygiene stuff dialed in, but ultimately it's just education, knowing that the body's going to sleep when it can, that we're meant to sleep, and letting the body do its thing. And that can be so hard for someone who's been trying to control that.
Hmm.
And so that's where maybe medications do work. Maybe there are some things that we use as a resource, and over time we want to build that internal safety, and the body will sleep.
Something I will not recommend though, because I went through that, is like I said, I'm doing Bikram yoga, and once I did a challenge when you had to go like at least like 5 times in a row. I did that, but at night at 6 p.m. I should have done that in the morning. Oh my God. On Friday, my eyes were like this open until 3 a.m. I had so much energy because it gives
Yeah,
you a lot of energy. I
yeah.
couldn't go to bed. So that would have been good to do that in the morning.
Yes, anything with
So be
energy. I mean, that's
careful, people.
that could be for working out too. Like for exercise in the
Yeah,
evening. I don't think it's the best for sleep. I mean, obviously, people are going to work out when they can, but do some of those energy producing things in the morning and use that energy during the day. And I think
yeah,
exhausting ourselves through activity is something that's so we sit so much in our society. For me, I never liked the message of you got to rest, and especially for fatigue. I need to exhaust myself, and I think that can be a guy thing. That I need to get out there and exhaust myself to as much as I can through exercise and movement. At the end of the day, I'm ready to go to bed.
I would never thought that yoga would give me that much energy. I would never thought. That was when I first started. I was like, oh, no,
Well,
no, 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 what's
yoga's letting the energy
going
flow,
on?
right? If there's blocked
I know.
energy, and it's
I wasn't
flowing through the
educated.
body, that makes sense to me.
Now it makes sense to me now, but I wasn't educated at that time.
Yeah. Well, hey, we live and we learn, and that's why we're doing a podcast.
Exactly. I'm learning every day out of it.
Yeah,
So do you want
exactly.
to maybe add something I didn't ask you? Some more information? The
Oh,
question I forgot.
man, I think you're doing great.
Thank you.
The one thing I would say is some people, when we get to this work, there's two type of people that come to this work. There's the person that feels so much and is so overwhelmed by what they feel, and there's other people that don't feel anything, right? And we just want to bring awareness to that, and know that when we start to do this work, we can feel more. And so much is possible when we start to listen to our body, because when we have trauma, we tend to disconnect from our body. We're listening to everybody on the outside, on the external, to tell us, how do I heal? How do I calm down? How do I heal my nervous system? What we learn over time is that all the wisdom is here. You are the medicine. The medicine is in our body. And when we can learn to listen to our body and respond to that little bits at a time, we become the medicine. The body isn't broken, it's responding to what it's been through. And that's why education is so important. That's why doing a little bit is so important. And over time, the body is going to heal through repetition. It has to.
Oh, that's a good one. The body's going to heal by repetition. I really like that. And that's true. So people, listen to your body, educate yourself, and just take the time that you need to do it. Well, thank
Amen,
you very
brother.
much, Mitch. Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
thank you. And if people want to connect with you, I would put all the information in the show notes. And this way you can help people with their nervous system. Do our own little things. Thank you very much, Mitch.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.